He is Rydius, born to be a perv. When he was 2 years old, he stole the maid's panties. At the age of 4, he piqued the teacher when she was changing clothes. And when he turned 6, he began to eavesdrop on his parents' intimate nights. Perhaps because he was still little, his family thought he just liked to play pranks. When he grows up, he unexpectedly shows a super magic talent, attracting countless beautiful girls. He thus has enough opportunities to get close to girls. Why can he be so powerful but perverted? Let's figure it out in this video. Rydius had an awful past life, and he was often abused during his student years, causing him to never go out again and stay at home until he was 40. He even didn't attend his parents' funeral. Rydius' brothers were enraged by his behavior and throw him out of their home. As Rydius lamented his failing life on the road, he noticed that several high school students were about to suffer misfortune. He didn't have time to think about it and sacrificed himself to save them. When Rydius wakes up again, a sexy woman is by his side. He unconsciously stretches out his hands, only to notice that he has become a baby. Rydius lives for a while and realizes that he has been reincarnated and that the place he is in is a magical world. The woman is his mother, Zenith, a magician. No matter what injury Rydius has, she gently chants a spell to heal him. And his father, Paul, is a powerful swordsman. As he grows up, he gradually understands the words of this world. He learns magic using the magic book at home, which says that he must chant a spell before using magic, but he never needs to chant it to release magic. Rydius realizes that he has an extremely rare talent. Rydius is worried that he will be treated as a monster if he uses magic at a young age, and always practices magic secretly. After spending a long time mastering some basic magics, he begins to learn more difficult magics. He tries to create a giant water ball. The water ball instantly destroys the wall and rushes into the sky, leaving a rainbow in the sky. This accident leads the whole family to learn the secret of his magic. Zenith is amazed by Rydius' talent and hires Roxy, a magic teacher, to teach Rydius. Roxy, a young girl with purple hair, plans to test Rydius' talent before deciding whether to take the job. Roxy chants a spell and releases a water ball that smashes a tree in the yard in one fell swoop. Rydius, on the other hand, can easily imitate her magic without even chanting a spell. This surprises her. Roxy, who has been hailed as a talented girl since she was a child, marvels that her talents are not as good as Rydius, a 4-year-old boy, and falls into a state of depression. Fortunately, Rydius thoughtfully comforts her and consoles her. It is the first time Rydius has spoken to a stranger since his reincarnation. From then on, Roxy becomes Rydius' teacher and lives in his house. The Rydius family prepares a sumptuous dinner to welcome Roxy. Rydius feels the warm atmosphere at the table and is very emotional. He has a happy family and a gentle teacher. Rydius is determined that he will live well in his life. Roxy is pleased with Rydius' talent since it allows the rest of the teaching to go very smoothly. She not only teaches Rydius magic but also tells him a lot about another world. In addition to humans, there are races such as elves and demons in another world. Roxy is a member of the demon clan. Some of the demon races have green hair, and they have killed various races and have been exiled from this continent. Roxy warns Rydius to run away as soon as he sees someone with green hair and a ruby on the head. Rydius doesn't give too much importance because he thinks that there is no such race on this continent. Fast forward a year. Today is Rydius' 5-year-old birthday. Roxy presents Rydius with a magic wand and tells him that tomorrow she will test his learning in the countryside. Rydius was often humiliated by his classmates in his previous life, and he is still afraid of passers-by looking at him, thinking that everyone is laughing at him, so he is afraid to go out. When Roxy tries to take Rydius on a horse, he resists but it doesn't work, so he closes his eyes nervously. Moments later, he hears passers-by greeting Roxy, and no one pays extra attention to him at all. He realizes that he will no longer be abused in this life, and he can start a new life in this world. After they arrive in the suburbs, Roxy casts an extremely powerful magic. Suddenly, the entire sky is covered with dark clouds, and thunderstorms suddenly fall. This is the first time Rydius has seen the terrifying power of magic. After Roxy terminates her magic, Rydius tries to imitate her chanting spells and wield his wand, creating an even more violent thunderstorm. Roxy laments that Rydius has grown into a magician even better than her, and it is time for her to leave. She leaves Rydius with an amulet to bid him and his family farewell. Rydius is sad. He has fallen in love with Roxy for a year, but he can't find any reason to keep her and can only watch her leave. On this day, while wandering outside, Rydius notices that several children are doing bad things to a kid named Sylphiette. He chases the children away with water balls and cleans the dirt on the kid's head. He notices that Sylphiette has green hair, and it seems that Sylphiette has been abused by being mistaken for a terrifying demon. It's Sylphiette's first time to meet a peer who does not discriminate against her, and she soon befriends Rydius. Since then, they have often played together, and Rydius has also taught Sylphiette to use magic. Sylphiette is a gifted girl who learns magic quickly, but her level of magic is far worse than that of Rydius. Suddenly it's raining, and Rydius hurries to take Sylphiette to his house to change clothes. Rydius has always thought Sylphiette is a boy, so a bad misunderstanding ensues. He notices Sylphiette's delay in undressing in the shower and forcibly takes off her clothes. Sylphiette cries, attracting Paul's attention, and Rydius on the side is completely confused. After Paul understands the whole story, he suggests that Rydius apologize to Sylphiette. Rydius guiltily tells Sylphiette that he has always treated her like a boy. Sylphiette cries even harder. Paul reluctantly instructs Rydius on how to apologize to a girl, and Rydius obtains Sylphiette's understanding. In the cold winter, something happens to this cozy family. Zenith is pregnant, which would have been a happy thing until she discovers that the maid is also pregnant with Paul's child. Zenith's excitement disappears instantly, and she loses her temper at home. The maid is very guilty and offers to return to her hometown to give birth. Zenith knows that it has been extremely cold outside lately, and she is afraid that the maid would die in a blizzard before returning home. This makes the kind Zenith very struggled. Rydius lies to save the maid's life, saying that he has seen Paul force the maid to sleep together. Children's words are always more trustworthy than adults' arguments. Zenith spares the maid out of sympathy and takes out all her anger on Paul. In fact, it is the maid who hits on Paul. Paul and the maid have since realized that Rydius is much more mature than the other children. 2 years later, Rydius receives a letter from Roxy learning that she has studied various magical knowledge during this time, and her magic level has greatly improved. Rydius's competitive spirit is piqued by the letter, and the difficulty in wanting to go to the Academy of Magic with Sylphiette is that Sylphiette's family situation is complicated and she cannot afford the tuition. The Rydius family can't afford 2 tuitions either. To achieve his goal, Rydius asks Paul to help him find a job. Although Rydius is only 7 years old now, Paul believes that Rydius is fully capable of independence and accedes to Rydius' request. Paul calls his friend Ghislaine, an orc, to help Rydius introduce jobs. Her dress is so sexy that Rydius gets a little excited. Suddenly, he is knocked unconscious by Paul. When Rydius wakes up, he finds himself in Ghislaine's carriage. Paul leaves a letter explaining everything. Paul arranges for Rydius to teach the mayor's daughter, Eris, for 5 years. He fears that Rydius does not want to be separated from Sylphiette, and does not want Sylphiette to live alone with the lecherous Rydius either, so he can only knock Rydius unconscious and send Rydius away. Ghislaine is actually Paul's lover, known as Sword King. She is responsible for teaching Eris about swordsmanship, and she will be responsible for keeping Rydius safe in the coming days. Rydius is helpless but can only accept the arrangement and follows Ghislaine to the destination. Mayor is a gentle person, Paul's cousin. His daughter, Eris, is 9 years old and is feisty, and no teacher has ever been able to make her obedient. The mayor has no expectations for Rydius, who is younger than Eris, and believes he will soon give up the job. The first time Rydius meets Eris, he tastes the girl's domineering. She slaps Rydius simply because she doesn't recognize someone younger than her as her teacher. Rydius shoots back without showing any weakness, only to be attacked even more frantically by Eris. He realizes she is mad and runs away. Rydius understands that punishing Eris with magic will only lead to more ferocious retaliation, and he has to think of something else. He proposes to the mayor to plan a fake kidnapping to scare Eris, which is supported by the mayor. The mayor arranges for a servant to assist Rydius in his work. Seeing that it is already dark outside, Rydius goes back to his room to sleep. He wakes up to find he and Eris are tied up in a warehouse. He can't help but lament the mayor's execution. He uses magic to burn his rope and regains his mobility. Eris yells at him to help her untie her, attracting the attention of the gangster's bald man. The bald man violently beats Eris and leaves. Rydius doesn't expect the mayor to be so ruthless, and he only uses magic to heal part of Eris's injuries to prevent her from shouting when she is recovered. He breaks the bars and prepares to escape. Eris asks him for help. He takes the opportunity to ask Eris to stop shouting and not be violent from now on. At this time, Eris notices the voice of a bald man outside the door, worrying about being injured again, and agrees to this condition. When Rydius escapes from the warehouse with Eris, she immediately repents. Eris speaks louder, but she is noticeably less arrogant than she used to be. When they approach the mayor's house, they meet the mayor's servant and think they are out of danger. Unexpectedly, 2 gangsters suddenly appear and capture Eris. In fact, the servant and gangsters have long colluded to use Rydius and the mayor's plan to create a real kidnapping. Rydius hurriedly uses magic to create a wall to stop them. The servant offers to give Rydius 100 gold coins to retreat, which is more than the tuition that Rydius would teach 10 people. But Rydius refuses, and he first throws a fireball into the sky, catching Ghislaine's attention. He then uses his magic to conjure up a bunch of stone drills to attack the enemies. Rudius' magic reeks the bald man hard and snatches Eris. Another gangster tries to come after, but his feet are controlled by Rudius' magic and he can only throw his sword at Rudius in anger. Ghislaine arrives in time to destroy the sword when Rudius is about to be hit by it. She passes through the gangsters at great speed, and they instantly turn into pieces. This is the first time Rudius has seen a murderous scene, and he realizes that the world is crueler than he ever imagined. When Eris returns home, she comes back to her former arrogant look. Fortunately, she recognizes Rudius and allows him to become her teacher. Rudius' first job isn't easy. Eris is a kid who hates studying and is only interested in Ghislaine's swordsmanship. When Rudius tutors her, she tries various methods to escape. Once, Rudius finds Eris in the stable who has skipped class and is asleep on a haystack. He suddenly has a bad idea and puts his hand into her skirt. This action wakes Eris up and causes Rudius to be beaten. I think he deserves it. In his dull work, Rudius's only entertainment is to make statues of relatives and friends to ease his homesickness. Once, while wandering, he notices someone selling an item that can stimulate desire, and secretly purchases it, intending to use it on Eris. It's a pity that he accidentally breaks the item as soon as he gets back home, and Ghislaine is well informed and sees through Rudius's intention. The innocent Eris is piqued by curiosity and threatens Rudius to confess, but he doesn't dare to say anything. The fuss is passing by time, and Eris is about to celebrate her 10-year-old birthday. Rudius is asked to instruct her in dancing. Eris's dancing skill is so bad that it drives Rudius crazy. Rudius feels that he should prepare a birthday present for Eris, and to earn some money, he sells Roxy's statue. Soon after, Rudius receives a letter from Roxy and a book. Roxy is teaching magic to a prince who, like Rudius, is lecherous and harasses her often. The prince recently has purchased a statue of her, which is precisely carved out of the details of her body. Roxy writes in the letter that she has never encountered anything so bizarre. Rudius realizes that it is a statue he has made, lamenting the coincidence of fate. Rudius then flips through the book Roxy has given him. The book contains all kinds of strange knowledge, including the language of the demon clan. Rudius learns the language out of curiosity, although he doesn't know when he will be able to use it. On Eris's birthday, her family holds a grand banquet. A noble boy offers to invite her to a dance. Unfortunately, she dances so badly that she is mocked by onlookers. At this time, Rudius takes Eris's hand. He has previously taught Eris to dance, and he knows best what kind of beat is suitable for her and what movements will not embarrass her. They cooperate to complete a wonderful dance that wins everyone's applause. Eris smiles brightly. In the evening, Rudius gives a wand to Eris and Ghislaine respectively, because he has also taught Ghislaine to learn magic. They are so happy that Eris shows her gratitude for the first time. In the blink of an eye, Rudius has been here for 3 years. During this time, he notices 2 interesting pieces of information. One is that a suspicious red sphere appears in the sky, but no one knows what it is and nobody bothers to pay attention to it. The second is that Paul was the heir of the family and he left the family for his freedom. Because of Rudius' noble bloodline, Eris's family often looks for opportunities to woo him. On Rudius's 10th birthday, Eris's family carefully prepares a birthday party for him, and the present is an expensive magic wand. He pretends to shed tears and thanks them. Eris's mother hugs him and offers to marry Eris to him. Eris doesn't know that the family is wooing Rudius, and protests with a blushing face. After the banquet, only the mayor and Rudius remain in the hall. The mayor tells Rudius that he comes from a big family and unfortunately he cannot be granted the status of the heir. He wants Rudius to marry Eris, and he wants to use Paul's family to become the head of the family. Rudius doesn't want to get involved in the power struggle of the big family and pretends to hear nothing. But there are things that people can't run away from. Rudius sees Eris sitting on his bed in his pajamas when he returns to his room. He comes around that it is arranged by the mayor, and he tries to stay calm but is quickly defeated by desire. When he is about to take the final steps, Eris shyly breaks free. She says it is too soon to do the last step and that Rudius should wait at least 5 more years, and flees the room. Rudius realizes that he has just lost his mind, but he is glad that Eris rejects him. Meanwhile, weird things are happening everywhere. Monsters frequently invade the human world, and the demon race seems to intend to invade the continent where humans are located. When Rudius takes Eris and Ghislaine outdoors to test his wand, some black swirls appear in the sky. At this time, a man with a mask suddenly shows up and attacks them, claiming to be the messenger of the hero. He thinks that the strange celestial phenomena is caused by Rudius, but in fact, Rudius has not yet cast magic. The masked man suddenly senses that incoming danger and rushes away. Then, the red spheres and vortexes in the sky turn into a blue pillar of light. It seems like the apocalypse. When Rydius regains consciousness, he changes back to his previous life, which is his soul. A white god comes to Rydius. The god has always been interested in Rydius, kindly telling Rydius that when he wakes up, he will meet a man and that Rydius must trust and help the man. Rydius hates himself for the way he is and wants to leave right away. The god readily agrees. Rydius opens his eyes and finds that he is in a strange place. He sees only Eris and a man with green hair and ruby on his head. Despite Rydius' fears, he chooses to believe in God and tries to communicate with the men in the language of the demons. The green-haired man, named Richard, claims to be the one who saves Rydius and Eris, and he speaks human language. That's when Eris wakes up to see Richard, screaming and crying in horror. Richard laments that this is the reaction of a child, and he is surprised that Rydius is so calm. Reassured by Rydius, Eris is no longer so wary of Richard, but she still can't help but shiver. Richard takes them to the village of the demon clan, where a group of purple-haired demons lives, and Roxy is from this village. The demons are wary of Rydius and Eris until they see that Rydius has an amulet given to him by Roxy and take them in. It is here that Rydius learns about Richard's story. Richard belongs to a race with a strong sense of honor. 400 years ago, the demon god transferred the curse he suffered to them by giving them some spears. Spears with curses made them lose their minds and went around killing and even killing their families. At that time, Richard's son sacrificed his soul to awaken Richard. For 400 years Richard helped the weak everywhere in order to change the reputation of his race. Rydius thinks of Richard living 400 years of exclusion and sympathizes with Richard. After a short break, Richard takes Rydius and Eris to the human continent. On the way, they pass a city of orcs. Rydius dyes Richard's hair blue to prevent Richard's identity from being exposed. They sign up as adventurers in order to earn the money for the journey. Other adventurers see that they are not famous adventurers, mocking them for being only worthy of the task of finding kittens, which can only make very little money. This statement is indeed true. As new adventurers, they can only take on some simple tasks. Rydius takes his companions to a hotel to rest. Tired, he quickly enters a dream, and once again meets the white god. The god guides him on a mission to find the kitten, which is puzzling to him. He wakes up in the confusion and looks for the kitten with his companions. The ruby on Richard's head is equivalent to his third eye, which senses the breath of living things, and he takes Rydius and Eris to a cave where many predator pets are held. Only then do they realize that the kitten in the commission turns out to be a panther. Later, Richard ties up the orcs who are guarding the beasts. Rydius asks them for information but is kicked away by a red orc. Little does he expect that Richard will kill the red orc for this, on the grounds that he will not tolerate any crime and will not allow anyone to harm the child. During later interrogation, Rydius and others learn that they are adventurers who complete their commission by stealing pets. Richard intends to kill them, much to the anger of Rydius and Eris. They believe that Richard's random killing will make the reputation of Richard's race worse. Richard calls off in silence. Immediately after, Rydius makes a deal with these adventurers. After that, these adventurers will give him some dangerous tasks that they dare not perform. Meanwhile, Roxy travels to Rydius' hometown and anxiously searches the list of victims. She notices that Paul has left a commission to search for his family, and it turns out that Paul and his family have been separated. At this time, Rydius' team receives a commission to come to a gloomy forest. Strangely, 3 teams receive this commission. Richard notices that a nearby team is surrounded by a giant python and a large spider. He is about to save them but is stopped by Rydius. Rydius believes that they will gain other adventurers' gratitude if they help them when they are in the most dangerous situation, and he can use magic to heal them. Unexpectedly, a moment later, a birdman is killed, and Rydius is stunned. Richard and Eris rush to join the fight, killing the monsters. Richard yells furiously at Rydius, unable to accept that an adventurer who has a chance to survive dies because of Rydius' scheming. The companion of the birdman cries and says that when they become adventurers, they have long been determined to face death. She believes that the cause of Birdman's death is that they miscalculate the difficulty of the task. Rydius feels extremely guilty and escorts the birdman's companions out of the forest. When Rydius and his companions return to the forest, they meet the target of the commission, a huge red snake. It has a pigman in its mouth. This time, Rydius does not hesitate and immediately launches an attack on the red snake, forcing it to spit out the pigman. Eris waits for the opportunity to approach the red snake and slashes at its body. Red Snake sees that Rydius is a magician who is not good at fighting and rushes toward him, only to be caught by Richard. Eris takes the opportunity to slash at the red snake with all her might, cutting off its body. In the end, Rydius blasts the red snake with magic and the fight is over. Unfortunately, the injured pigman is dead. They sadly return to the city and a horseman stops them. He abuses a female adventurer who works with Rydius and asks about their deal with Rydius. He threatens Rydius to hand over half of the honorarium or the Adventurers Guild will disqualify Rydius' team as adventurers. Just as Rydius is about to use magic to punish the horseman, Richard washes the dye off his hair with water. Everyone notices his green hair and runs away in terror. Richard puts his hands around the horseman's neck and orders him not to tell their secrets. The horseman has lost the courage to threaten them and faints in fright. Their dispute catches the attention of the army, and Richard sees the army arriving and quickly flees. At this time, Rydius notices that even the Birdman's companions are afraid of Richard and asks in confusion why they are afraid of their rescuers. This statement makes the Birdman's companions feel ashamed. Later, Rydius and Eris find Richard in the suburbs. Richard says that a true warrior should not kill at will, but fight for those who he wants to protect. He will continue to protect them and restrain himself. He shaves his hair and covers the ruby with a headband so that people will not fear him. After that, the three of them continue on the adventure. After a year of adventure, they gradually gained fame. They crossed the demon continent and finally arrived at the port on the edge. Then they can finally return home by sea. However, passengers seem to be scared by Richard, so the captain rejects to sell them tickets unless they pay far more than the other passengers. They don't have enough money, so they have to make money first. At night, the white god reappears in Rydius' dream. He claims to be the human god and is willing to solve Rydius' troubles. Knowing that Rydius lacks money, he suggests that he go to the market tomorrow to buy some food and then head to the path next to the market. The next day, following the god's words, Rydius comes to the path with food, where he meets a hungry little girl. Rydius gives the food to the little girl, who happily eats it. To Rydius' surprise, the little girl turns out to be a demon emperor. As she finishes the food, she gives Rydius a demon eye in return. The demon eye has the ability to predict the future, and although just a few more seconds ahead, it is already powerful and useful for Rydius. Rydius, who is not good at swordsmanship, can now defeat the sword master Eris, with the ability to predict the future. Of course, he still can't defeat a powerful warrior like Richard. That night, Rydius also finds a way to return home. A smuggler promises to send Rydius and his companions home as long as Rydius helps him bring a cargo back. He accepts the smuggler's offer and sails to another continent first. Rydius then proceeds to deliver the goods in a secret warehouse, as agreed, but to his shock, the goods mentioned by the smuggler turn out to be the beast children. The guard even kills a child just because he is crying. Richard hates this scum, so he and Richard kill the guards, saving the children locked up here. As they are about to leave, the children tell Rydius that their friend is still in the warehouse. So Rydius asks Richard to take the children to leave first, and he goes back alone to save the rest one. To his surprise, the friend of the children turns out to be a huge dog. Rydius sets it free, and the dog happily plays with him. At this moment, a strong beast man arrives at the warehouse, who seems to regard Rydius as the smuggler and captures him. He brings Rydius to the beast tribe and locks him up. A few days later, another man is put into the same prison. He is Geese, arrested for cheating and gambling with beast men. Rydius then comes up with the idea to break out of prison with Geese. But on this night, the kidnappers suddenly attack the beast tribe. They set fire here, creating a lot of smoke. Beast men have a very sensitive sense of smell, but in pungent smoke, this advantage becomes a weakness. The criminals take the opportunity to kill adults and kidnap the children. Rydius and Geese have escaped from the prison, but they can't bear to see the beast men being tortured, so they decide to help rebel against these criminals. Rydius first extinguishes the fire with water magic, helping the beast men regain their sense of smell, and they instantly become strong, defeating most of the criminals. However, some children have been captured, and Rydius goes with several beast men to rescue them. The leader of these criminals is none other than the smuggler, a vile but strong sword master. He uses these children as bait to defeat the beast warriors. Fortunately, the previously kidnapped dog also comes to Rydius' aid, and together they attack the smuggler. With his ability to foresee the future, Rydius is able to dodge attacks from the smuggler in advance, but his attacks are so fast that Rydius is still wounded by him. At this point, the dog and Geese interfere with the smuggler, slowing him down. Rydius immediately seizes the opportunity to kill him with one blow. After that, Eris and Richard also bring the kidnapped children back to the beast tribe. The beast men no longer misunderstand Rydius, and they sincerely apologize to him for their previous actions. Rydius and his companions stay for a while in the beast tribe, where Rydius occasionally peeks at Eris bathing with the beautiful beast girls, but he is soon discovered, and does not dare to do it again. Eris becomes good friends with the beast girls, and she teaches them her swordsmanship, so that they would be able to protect themselves in the future. A few days later, Rydius and his companions leave the tribe, along with Geese who guides them to the next city. The city is the capital of the second largest kingdom in this world. It is very prosperous, mainly inhabited by humans, and they rarely see other races. Upon arrival in the city, Geese leaves the group, as he prefers to travel alone. Rudius intends to make some money here, because they are still on another continent, and it will take a lot of money to return home. In addition, Rudius makes many rigid figures. Every time they help others, they give away a puppet. This can change people's perception of the rigid race. One day, Eris and Rigid go out to earn money, while Rudius stays at the hotel to write letters. He wants to write a letter to his and Eris's families first. Just then, he happens to see a man kidnap a slave. Rudius decides to help the slave, secretly following the man to an abandoned warehouse. Rudius is hiding in a box with underwear. In order to prevent retaliation later, he wears an underwear as a mask to hide his identity. However, the owner of the underwear, a beautiful swordswoman, happens to see it. She takes Rudius as a pervert and immediately fights him. Both the beautiful swordswoman and her companions fail to defeat Rudius, so they have to ask their leader for help. The leader is a drunken swordsman who quickly cuts Rudius' mask. The next second, both the leader and Rudius are shocked. It turns out that this leader is Rudius' father, Paul. What's more, Paul's men were not kidnapping slaves, but saving them, Rudius' fellow countrymen. When Paul sees Rudius, instead of showing joy, he accuses Rudius of focusing on adventures for a year and a half while sparing no attention to what was happening in his hometown. Rudius is also upset. He has gone through a lot of difficulties in the past year before he came to this continent. While Paul shows no care but just scolds him, the two quarrel because of this, and even get into a fight. Not until Rudius' sister interferes do they stop fighting. Rudius finally learns that the catastrophe has not only teleported him and Eris to the demon continent, but sent all the people in his hometown to different places randomly. Some of them disappeared, some were forced into slavery, and others tragically died. If Rudius could inquire a few times about the situation of his hometown, he should have been able to know everything, and maybe help his fellows. However, he did nothing, which is why Paul is disappointed in him. When Rudius finds out the truth, he feels very guilty. If he cares a little more about his hometown, he might have been able to save many of his fellows in need during the journey. Paul also feels regret and guilt. After the catastrophe, he and his daughter, Norn, were teleported to another continent. When he learned about the situation, he began to form a team to search for the missing people. He helped many of them, but never found his family. Because of this, Paul began to drink heavily and his health condition became worse and worse. He impulsively blamed Rudius because of being drunk as well. Later, Geese visits Paul. As his former teammate, Geese enlightens Paul, making him realize that Rudius is just an 11-year-old boy. It is already very difficult for Rudius to return to the human kingdom from the demon continent, and it is not right for Paul to make him take more responsibility. So Rudius and Paul meet again, and this time they both understand each other. They do not argue but apologize to each other. Instead of thinking about other complicated issues, they simply rejoice in the reunion. In the end, Rudius and Paul reconcile with a hug, and they agree to continue to work hard to find their families in the future. Rudius then needs to escort Eris back home, and in the process, he will also try to find his family. As for Paul, he will stay on the continent to search for his family. Before they part, Paul presents Rudius with a letter of introduction and some money for the journey, allowing Rudius and his companions to set off immediately. Paul also gets much better after meeting Rudius. He stops drinking, and begins to help his fellows more actively. With Paul's letter of introduction, Rudius is able to buy tickets at the normal price. They sail back to the world's largest continent, where Rudius and Eris' hometown is located. Meanwhile, Roxy returns to the demon continent. It turns out that 1 year ago, Paul once left a message asking for help. As Roxy saw the message, she and Paul's two old friends went to look for Paul's family. They traveled all the way from Paul's hometown to the demon continent. Roxy did this also to help her apprentice, Rudius, but she couldn't find Paul's family in the end. The world is very big, and if there is no clear scope, it is very difficult to find someone. Fortunately, the human god reappears in Rudius' dream, and he tells Rudius the location of the maid Lilia. Lilia's daughter, Rudius' half-sister, Aisha, is also there. So Rudius heads to Chiron Kingdom on the advice of the human god. Roxy has worked as a royal teacher in the Chiron Kingdom, so he sends a letter to the palace trying to enlist Roxy's help. Unbeknownst to him, Roxy has left the place. Luckily, Rudius runs across Aisha while waiting for Roxy's response. Aisha seems to want to send a letter, but several guards try to snatch it. Rudius decisively helps Aisha defeat the guards, and then escapes with her. Rudius later learns that Lilia and Aisha have been locked up in the palace by Pax, the 7th prince of Chiron Kingdom. Lilia wrote a letter to Paul, and Aisha seized a chance to escape from the palace to send the letter. Rudius decides to rescue Lilia, so he entrusts Aisha to Eris and Richard, and then heads to the palace alone. Rydius thought he would be stopped by the guards, who however, tell him that Roxy wants to see him, so Rydius follows the guards into the palace. But in fact, this is Pax's trap. When Roxy was a royal teacher here, Pax fell in love and become obsessed with her, but she soon left Chiron Kingdom. To lure Roxy back, Pax imprisoned Lilia and Aisha. Now that Rydius came over, Pax takes him as a better bait. Soon after Rydius enters the palace, he is imprisoned by Pax's magic array and can't find a way to escape for a while. Just then, the third prince of Chiron Kingdom, Zenoba, comes to visit Rydius. It turns out that the guards confiscated Rydius' luggage, in which they found figures made by Rydius. Zenoba happens to be an enthusiast of figures who has previously collected Roxy figures made by Rydius. When Zenoba learns that Rydius was the maker of the figures, he respects him so much that he even calls him a master. It is a good chance for Rydius to ask Zenoba to help him escape from prison. Meanwhile, some soldiers who are dissatisfied with Pax tell Eris and Richard about Rydius' capture. They immediately decide to break into the palace to save him. That night, Zenoba grabs Pax to Rydius' cell. Zenoba is so tough that Pax can't break free. Meanwhile, Eris also arrives at the palace for rescuing Rydius. But before that, Zenoba has forced Pax to release Rydius and Lilia. He even broke Pax's arm as punishment. Now Lilia and Aisha are both free, and Zenoba arranges a carriage to transport them to Paul. As for Zenoba himself, the king sends he and Pax to study abroad as punishment for their conflict, while Rydius continues his journey home with his companions. Soon after, they come to a mountain range, which is very dangerous because there are red dragons living here. Red dragons are very powerful creatures, and they are also social animals. Even the 7 gods, the strongest people in the world, are afraid of a horde of red dragons. To return home, they pluck up the courage to cross the mountains, only to bump into a very powerful man. Richard and Eris are so frightened by the man, while Rydius as a transmigrationer doesn't feel the strength. The man turns out to be none other than Dragon God, the second ranked of the 7 gods. He is not alone. A mysterious girl with a mask is next to the Dragon God. Rydius wants to get some information about the catastrophe from Dragon God, who however knows nothing. He then asks Rydius if he knows Human God. When Rydius answers yes, Dragon God suddenly raids him. Richard immediately steps forward to block Dragon God, but is knocked unconscious after fighting him for a while. Eris also joins the fight to protect Rydius, only to be defeated in an instant. Dragon God takes Rydius as an apostle of the Human God, and he inflicts mortal wounds on him. Rydius seems to be dying, and Dragon God tries to warn Human God in this way, but Rydius doesn't give in, and he uses all his magic to summon a fireball to attack Dragon God. The strong power turns the fireball purple, causing Dragon God to get serious to fend off the attack. Then, he pierces Rydius' body. When Rydius wakes up, he finds himself in a dream, where he meets Human God. Rydius' soul thinks his body has died, feeling great regret. Rydius wonders why Dragon God killed him when he heard that he knew the Human God, who then reveals to Rydius that the Dragon God is his enemy. Human God can predict many things, except for Dragon God's actions, so he didn't foresee that Rydius would meet Dragon God. But the good news is that Rydius isn't dead. Rydius wakes up from the dream, and Eris tells him that the masked girl has resurrected him. This battle shocked both Rydius and Eris, making them realize how powerful Dragon God is. For the next few days, Rydius always has nightmares of being killed by Dragon God. To avoid it, during the rest of his journey, Rydius begins to practice magic hard. He hopes that he will not be easily defeated again when he encounters a powerful opponent next time. Finally, after a long journey, Rydius and Eris return to their hometown. However, everything has changed here. Prosperous towns disappeared, leaving only a barren land. As Richard has completed his task of escorting Rydius and Eris home, he decides to say goodbye to them and continue on a new journey. Rydius has taught Richard many things, including how to improve people's perception of him. Richard will continue to help others, especially children. As for Rydius and Eris, they will stay home to help their fellows. After Richard leaves, Rydius and Eris go to a nearby refugee camp, where they are surprised to see Ghislaine, but then they are hit hard by the news that both Eris's parents and grandfather died. Eris is grieved, asking to be left alone to calm down for a while. That night, Eris comes to Rydius' tent. She has lost all her family, but in the future she can have a new family. Eris wants to have intimacy with Rydius tonight so they can be lovers and family. By this time Eris has turned 18, and Rydius likes her as well. They thus have a romantic night. But the next day, Eris leaves with Ghislaine, leaving only a letter to Rydius. She thinks that she is not strong enough now, and will come back to Rydius when she becomes stronger through practice. Rydius doesn't understand why Eris is leaving as soon as they become lovers, and he feels very sad and lost. For the next few days, Rydius is depressed, staying in his tent every day doing nothing. The manager of the refugee asks Rydius to help with something. As a very powerful magician, he is sure enough able to help others, but Rydius is frustrated about Eris's leaving, unwilling to do anything. Meanwhile, Eris is learning more powerful swordsmanship with Ghislaine. During their previous encounter with Dragon God, Rydius almost died in front of Eris, who then vowed to become stronger to protect her beloved Rydius. We then see Rudyard help people experiencing difficulties during his journey. When these people are helped, they are no longer afraid of Rudyard, and they will tell others that Rudyard's race is not terrible, but very kind. Roxy and her partners are still trying to find Rydius' family. She did not get any useful information about Rydius' family until she met the Demon Emperor and did him a favor. In order to repay Roxy, the Demon Emperor searches Rydius' family with her magic eye, discovering that Lilia and Aisha have returned to Paul's side, while Rydius has returned to the hometown, though is now in a very depressed mood. Rydius' mother, on the other hand, is trapped in a labyrinth. When Roxy learns of the location, she immediately sets out to inform Paul. She believes Rydius will be able to pick himself up even if he's temporarily down. Roxy is right about Rydius. In his previous life, he chose to avoid responsibility for something bad. He did not regain the courage to face life again until he died. But this time, he no longer wants to be like that. Instead, he decides use his strength to help his family and more people. Rydius quickly regains his strength, leaves the tent and begins to deal with all difficulties and trials positively. His legendary life continues. At the end of the story, Rydius and Eris become lovers. They spent 5 years together. At first, Rydius was Eris' teacher, and they lived a typical noble life. Later, they were transferred to the demon continent and experienced tribulations together. In the end, they fall in love with each other, but Rydius made a promise with other beautiful girls as well. In the future, we will see the love story between Rydius and other beautiful girls, as well as more exciting adventures. The second season is now aired. If you also like this anime, please comment "keep going" in the comment area, and I will decide whether to recap the second season based on your comments and likes. In the end, please like and subscribe. There are many similar anime recaps on my channel, and see you next time.